afternoon. So together we're going to explore 6 different practices for awakening your heart. All of us have hearts that have some plaque and need some cleaning, like a hygiene practice. I was reminded about this when I was on my way here on the airplane. I was sitting on the airplane, and across from me, across the aisle, there was a mother with a beautiful African traditional shirt on, and her son, who was probably around 9 years old. And after takeoff, she went to the bathroom, and then once the plane was level, they started the drink service, where they push the cart through. And so maybe she was stuck at the back of the plane and she was gone for a while. And then over the intercom, they said, is there anybody with medical training? We need somebody with medical training at the back of the plane. So I didn't think anything of it. But then the meal service continued and she wasn't coming back. And then I started to notice her son was getting really anxious. And then her son clued in that something had happened to his mom. So then he was trying to hold it together, and then he started looking out the window so nobody would see him, and you could see his eyes tearing up in the reflection in the window. And so the stewardess came over to him and she said, everything will be okay. And she did what anybody would do, which is have a candy, have a pretzel, have a drink, And of course, none of this really helped. And so then still, time was slowing down. She hadn't come back yet. And then a woman from the front of the plane, who was maybe a nurse, went to the back of the plane. And then the stewardess repositioned the boy closer to the aisle so she could keep an eye on him. And moved him 1 seat forward, so I could see the back of his face. And then this man in a business suit, who was the least suspecting bodhisattva on the airplane, leaned over to the boy and put his hand on the boy's skin and just started stroking with the softest fingers this boy's arm until the boy just started settling down. And then when we were landing, because it's just a short flight, he held the boy's hand the whole time through the landing, and then accompanied the boy to where the paramedics were at the end of the flight. So this in Buddhist practice is called the Bodhisattva path. And about a century after the Buddha died, there was a meeting called the First Council, where all the elder monks got together and created rules for a mostly monastic sangha, a mostly monastic community. And then about a century after that, there was another meeting for people who didn't feel included in the first meeting. Every community is like this, right? They create rules, and then people feel excluded and they need a new meeting. So this was about 200 years after the death of the Buddha. And they had a second council, and householders came. People who had families, people who had jobs, men and women, people who were not celibate, people who were celibate. And they all came to talk about how they were going to practice the Buddha's teachings. How were they were going to embody the Buddha's teachings. And one of the themes that came up in this practice, in this discussion, was called the Bodhisattva path. Bodhi means awakened or awakening, and sattva means being. Sometimes it's translated as awakened being, but I like to think of it as an awakening being, like this man on the airplane. In that moment, unrehearsed, he responds with his whole body to this boy and creates a field of the heart, a field of awakening. A bodhisattva is somebody who's practicing, who's a yogi, like you, like me. And we're practicing because we're so stressed out and our lives are a disaster. And we just want to calm down and have less stress and less pain and less reactivity. And then we start to realize that as we become more calm and more settled, we become more sensitive to the unsettledness, to the reactivity, and to the pain of other people, to the pain of the earth, to the pain of animals. We start to realize that if we're all interconnected, we can't be free if other people are imprisoned. We can't be free if other people are in pain. And then we realize the only practice worth doing is a practice that includes other people. So this is called the Bodhisattva path. And this is what I call a path of the heart. You're walking to the door of enlightenment, you put your hand on the door, you're ready to go, and then you turn around and realize, oh, other beings.